welcome to Find It, where we find something every single Wednesday evening together. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Pamela Aubrey. Sounds like she's had a pretty interesting life. And she's an amazing entrepreneur, and she incorporates a lot of healing energy into what she does each day. And I can't wait to hear about that and share her with you. Her intro is coming up, and she will be right back with us. Hello, Pamela. Welcome to
Hi. Hi, Debbie. So great to be here with you. What a fun intro, too.
Isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Thanks to my producer, Lynn. She has great ideas. I have great ideas, too. I can't always execute them. So she's here to do that. So it's so great. It's so great to like meet you for realsies, you know? I mean, even though it's virtual, I mean, I love it. And I read your bio. I know about you. I know Lynn loves you. I know you also know Ken Walls, and you know the guy who put you and I together, Joe Ingram. And so I really want to hear all about you. And I would love to, I know that you had written in your bio that you had some early childhood challenges. Could you explain that and tell us about your childhood a little bit?
Yeah. So, I guess I just started out with a slightly different path, maybe than a lot of people. And I was born into a family that just wasn't quite ready for me. And my birth mother already had a daughter who was about 2 years older than me at that time. And her mother was essentially raising her. And so when I came along, her mother said, "Look, I'm up to my eyeballs in baby right now. I can only do so much." And so she ended up surrendering me for adoption.
Okay.
And so I was adopted at 21 days old. So I did spend 21 days with her. It was a bit of a decision for her to make, as you can imagine. And but then, I grew up, it was a closed adoption. So I grew up not knowing who she was, really not knowing anything about my birth family. And just that was normal to me, right? I didn't think that I would know them, but I didn't really know anything different. So I just kind of, accepted it for what it was. But the thing that I dealt with a lot from a very young age was just this pain inside of me that I couldn't understand. I couldn't really explain, and I didn't know how to talk to people about it. And, in that day and age, it's a little bit different now, not entirely, but in that day and age, adoption was like this wonderful, miraculous thing where you've just somehow been saved, by your adoptive family, and your birth family was probably just not a good family, and you wouldn't have wanted to be with them anyway. And so, there was a lot of kind of misunderstanding about what actually happens when kids are placed for adoption and what they experience and what that means for them in life. And so, dealing with that as a young child was challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. I in my mind as you're talking, and this beautiful person that you are, and and all that you've accomplished, I don't know where that path led you, but I certainly know that it would have been so difficult to let you go, but also so good that your mom was self-aware enough to know that she couldn't give you the life that you so deserved. And so I guess I'm really interested in understanding that if on one end of the spectrum you say, well, I didn't really know any different, and I didn't know who this family was, but you were in this loving family, I presume, that adopted you. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, my parents were, they loved us. Both of my brothers are adopted actually as well. But they also came from a very kind of rigid background. And so my childhood was a little bit like, growing up in sort of a military type environment is the best way I can describe it. Where there was kind of a lot of rules and a lot of expectations, and there wasn't necessarily a lot of space to like really become who you were,
Mm.
which was a challenge for me as kind of a right brain, creative, sort of free spirit. I didn't necessarily fit in the box the way I was supposed to all the time, and that too was challenging. So, I mean, there were pluses and minuses, just like in any other family,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't by any means perfect, but there were a lot of good things too.
I understand that. So then is that where the kind of the pain came from? The sadness that you felt as a child was not maybe being able to be your authentic self?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a mix, I mean, I think there was a definite loss that I experienced not being with my birth mom. And I kind of know that because some of the stories that my adoptive mom has told me is pretty indicative of a
Mhm.
baby that's going through grief, right? Or a child that's experiencing grief. So, that was a piece of it. But I think, yes, also being in an environment where I felt like I couldn't really be myself was also a part of it.
Okay, I understand that. So then from a very young age, your adoptive parents let you know that you were adopted
Correct, yes.
because you were
Really
only
right from the get-go.
yeah, because you were did I hear you correctly? You were only 21 days old when you were adopted.
That's
So
correct,
you
yep,
grew up knowing that you were adopted into this family. Did
yes.
you ever meet your birth parents?
So eventually, yeah, it's interestingly enough, eventually my birth mother did find me. And we communicated for a few years before I finally did have the opportunity to meet her and my half sister, actually.
Oh, wow.
And that actually ended up to be a really wonderful relationship. And it was a huge blessing because she really did love me, and so it was healing for me to know that, but it was also healing for me to be able to build a relationship with her and for her to become the person that she did to me.
Wow. So you're still in touch with them?
Well, so I was in touch with her for about 10 years, but she actually did pass.
I'm
And
so
she's
sorry.
been gone for several years now, but we really did have a wonderful relationship. I mean, she really became kind of like my confidant in many ways. And yeah, I'm super, super grateful for the time that I had with
Oh,
her.
that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Pam. And so then you go and you're raised in this kind of like very structured household with your adopted family with two brothers that were also adopted. And
Yeah.
tell us then what kind of student were you in school?
Well, I think that was one of the things I kind of had going for me was I was a pretty good student, so I did pretty well, and I was kind of a nerd really from the beginning. I was in spelling bees and
Nice.
did like science of the mind and all these things that I guess kind of kept me occupied in some senses.
Hmm.
I played sports. I kind of enjoyed all these different aspects of what was in front of me in terms of, ways to kind of better myself. So yeah, I mean, I did pretty well. I wasn't a straight A student all the way through school, but I got good enough grades that I got some scholarships and things for college.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was
Good
good.
for you. That's amazing. She's got the looks and the brains and sporty spice, people. I'm loving it. I love this. But, so then, okay, so when as you were growing up, did you have aspirations of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's funny because I really didn't. I thought early on that I was going to be a nurse, and I just kind of had it in my head that that's what I was going to do. And at that time in my world, there were two things that you could be if you were a woman: you could be a nurse or you could be a teacher.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have a very big vision beyond that. And I didn't really know how to like dream. I didn't really know how to think outside that box as a child.
Mm. That's interesting that you just said that. I think a lot of people probably feel that way.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a family where you're told you do this, you do that, it's structured. I guess it doesn't give us a lot of creativity, right? Outside of that. Or encourage it. It doesn't encourage it. Let's put it
Right.
that way. So then, okay, so you went on to college, you had scholarships and stuff like that because you're you're a very bright young
I
lady.
did
And
okay.
then what you didn't end up becoming a nurse. I know the end of the story, people. So what
Well,
happened in college?
yeah, the funny thing is I did start out as a nurse. I did 2 years in nursing, and I was a nurse actually for a little while. I did some home health nursing while I was in school. That
Wow.
actually helped me pay my bills along the way, which was great.
Mhm.
And I actually did love that. I mean, and to this day, it's still like if all else in the world fell away and I needed to go back to that for some reason, I would still love it.
Wow.
But the fact of the matter was, I just didn't feel like that was like really where I was supposed to end up. And
Mhm.
so and my really kind of like my first love was writing. And so I ended up changing my major. And it was a bit of a story because I was literally about to start the nursing program. And I had been debating all summer that summer, like, am I going to go into the program or not? I just couldn't make up my mind. And literally, like 2 weeks before school was supposed to start that year, my counselor from the school reached out to me and said, "Oh, you're missing a math credit. You've got to get this, done in 2 weeks." And I was like, "That's crazy. That's never going to happen." And so I just knew kind of like right then and there, okay, I'm changing my major. So I changed my major. I became an English major and a journalism minor. But it was great because I still had all this science and everything. And so it was like a great combination of these things that I love. And I had the opportunity to write and work with the school newspaper and little things like that. And so it was a lot of fun. And then after I graduated, I actually went back and got my secondary education training as well.
Wow. Wow, I didn't realize all of that. So you're very multifaceted. You've got a lot going on. So then you ended up doing all of these different things, but now I see that you own a company, marketing and consulting, and then you also have another one, and it's escaping me, but it has to do with energy. It's
Yeah,
called Energy, spelled Innergy, right?
correct. Yes.
Okay, so tell us about what you're doing currently.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I ended up, you know how life is, Debbie. There's just twists and turns,
Yes.
and so along the way, I ended up really actually doing quite a bit of office management, and with that came this marketing piece, which was pretty natural for me anyway as a writer. And then, of course, social media came along, and so I got hooked into social media and all those things. And so I did that for gosh, almost 20 years before I started my own business. And I did get into real estate and some other things along the way. I was just always kind of like
Wow.
that person that was trying new things.
I
And
love this. I love that you try new things and you're not afraid. Not afraid, obviously, right? So that
yeah, I mean, I
even
was afraid. I mean, that's just it. I mean, there were plenty of times I was afraid, but there were moments where it was like, well, I mean, life demands that I do something different and better. And so I'm going to, you
wow.
know,
Challenge
so,
accepted.
right.
So, I wanna back up a little bit because I did read something where you had some challenges as an adult too, and I don't
Mhm.
know with those traumas and challenges as an adult if that changed your trajectory of uh, your career path too. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, I mean, it did because there were moments when I knew that I was going to have to put myself in a position where I had more control over what was happening with my income, with my career. And I knew that it would have to be something that I could, rely on as a single mom. And because I did get divorced, and it was sort of like, okay, it's all well and good as long as there's some form of regular income coming in, which for the most part, wasn't an issue. But along the way, there were moments where it was a struggle. And a lot of that came from, just being pulled into court and things like that. And I thought I really got to kind of like up my game a little bit if I want to be able to have the lifestyle that, I feel like my son should have. And so that was a big piece of that. And actually, one of the main reasons I went into real estate.
That's incredible. Do you still dabble in real estate at all now?
I haven't for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had people ask me to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe I will at some point. I don't know, but
Yeah,
not
I
now.
was just wondering because 2020 was like, who would have thought it was gonna be a booming market? And a lot of people were,
Right.
yeah, buying and selling and a lot. happening there. But
Yeah.
so I'm really, really interested in how you incorporate healing energy and working with clients on that platform as well. And give it to me, all of it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what's really fun about what I'm doing now is that, combining my knowledge of business and marketing, working with clients and consulting with them in that area opens a lot of doors for me to consult with them in regards to energy and pieces of their lives that, might be affected by their energy. So, I mean, we all deal with this, right, on a regular basis where we have events in our lives or we have traumas or what have you. And those things can mess up our energy, right? They can just become blocks. And it's hard for us to make the progress we really want to if we're not dealing with some of those things. And for most of us, we've grown up with the concept of, well, I need to go to therapy and, go through that for a few years and sort through all of my stuff. And I'm not saying that there's anything at all wrong with that, because that can be very helpful and very useful. But one of the things that I love about energy healing is that it sort of bypasses that to some degree. And it kind of helps us like collapse time, is how I think of it, because some of the things that might take us longer to sort through in therapy, we can deal with in a shorter amount of time with healing therapies that are energetic. And I've used them myself. That was one of the reasons that I actually started using energy healing at all, was to deal with some of the issues in my own life and my son's life. We had been through some struggles after my divorce. And like I said, we had some court cases and things we had to deal with. And it was super challenging. And, I really struggled to find outside resources to help him and myself. And so energy healing was really a huge blessing. And I actually found it through Reiki initially. And then eventually I found EFT, which was and is the primary tool that I use to help us go through that time and to now help others.
Okay, so the acronym EFT stands for energy. I'm just guessing here. I
Yes,
don't
it's emotional freedom technique.
know. Okay, emotional freedom technique. So you're saying
Yeah.
that you found this through Reiki, but explain. Okay, so for the people watching, what is your definition of energy healing, healing energy, whatever? What is the definition as far as you're concerned of what that means?
Yeah. So, really, you're manipulating the energy systems of the body, right? And there's lots of different ways we can do that. I mean, one that most people are familiar with would be acupuncture, right? When you go to the acupuncturist, they're changing the meridian system. They're affecting the meridian system with the tools that they use. So, it's really the same concept. You just are affecting different energy systems within the body depending on what modalities you use.
Right. And so then, because I know a lot of people that may be listening aren't really, they think it's, you know, therapy is one way to also help you move stagnant energy, but then
Right.
also like with the things and the techniques that you're talking about, could that even implement the deep breathing like yoga, or is that part of it?
So yeah, I mean, yoga definitely affects your energy, no doubt about that. And I have friends that are yogis, and they, all day long can tell you about how yoga will help you energetically. And I do yoga. I love it. I mean, it does help me. I don't know that for me that's a huge piece of my energetic sort of therapy,
Yeah.
but it helps me in the sense that it keeps my body flexible, it keeps my body strong, and that physical piece of it's really important for me, which it is for most of us, right?
Absolutely. And also, so explain to us how you came to know what Reiki is and explain to us what Reiki is.
Yeah, sure. So, interestingly enough, I did mention that I love to try new things. So, at one point, I went to massage school, and that's how I got introduced to energy healing to begin with, and learned a little bit about Reiki through that. And then I just wanted to know more. So, I did specific Reiki trainings to become a Reiki master.
That's amazing. And so Reiki, again, it is also manipulating energy,
It
right?
is, and Reiki is a little bit unique in the way, that it manipulates energy, because you're really just transferring a healing energy. So you're sort of the medium, and the energy is just like coming through you,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. And so it's a little bit less specific, maybe in some ways, but it can be used on specific parts of the body. So it's a very kind of interesting and fun modality to play with.
Yeah, and I have really researched and read a lot about Reiki because I have an interest in it, and I'm not even sure why, and it may just be me being curious and I want to know more, kind of like that, like you
Yeah.
did. But what do you say to people? And this isn't putting you on the spot. I mean, I'm not asking you to like debate Reiki against religion, but in some of my reading up on this and kind of investigation of it, there will be people that say that you shouldn't Reiki isn't good if you're a Christian. What do you say to
Yeah.
that?
I find that interesting. First of all, I don't believe in labels. So I
Nice.
don't, I mean, it's fine if people, consider themselves a Christian, that's great. I don't label myself. I don't consider myself anything. I'm spiritual. I'm a spiritual being.
Yeah.
But with that, I grew up in the Christian world, so I do understand. My father was actually a minister. I do understand a lot of the
Wow.
structure and the thinking in that realm. And I to me, Reiki actually falls under what has historically been known as the laying on of hands. So, certainly all throughout the Bible, there's
Oh, yeah.
references to, yes, this practice, which is exactly that same concept of there is a healing energy coming through you into this other individual that you are requesting be sent to this person from God, source, whatever you want, to call it. And so to me, there's really not a difference. I know that some people feel that there is, and I mean, everyone's got their opinions, right? So I'm not going to tell someone that's a wrong opinion by any means, but that's my opinion on
I
that
love it.
particular subject.
Yeah, and I agree. I really appreciate what you have to say about that because I also am, trying to not, labels and all of that. It's just when you're raised a certain way, and that's like one of the things that you have to kind of like unlearn. And but I appreciate everything that you said about that because I feel drawn to it, and I have always considered myself a Christian. So when I was reading that stuff, I was like, well, I don't want to do anything that's not right, and
Yeah.
I'll figure it out in my own time. But um, I love what you had to say about it though. And laying of on the hands. Yes, all through the Bible, that's in there too. So I agree. So of all of your jobs, I mean, like every time you open your mouth, you're like, oh yeah, and I took massage therapy school. I'm in masseuse and I also am Reiki.
Uh,
So of all these things, what has been your most inspired and love of all your different careers and
mm.
the things you've dabbled in? Where's your passion really?
Yeah. I really do love working with people doing energy work, and there's a very sort of intuitive piece to the consulting that I do with people, and it only really happens in that one-on-one environment. But it's such a powerful and beautiful thing because I literally just get to watch people transform right in front of me and have these incredible aha moments and these breakthroughs that I know that, it's just a huge blessing and honor
Mhm.
for me to be able to be part of.
How often I mean, to be able to get a breakthrough like that, have you had a client that you've only worked with once or is it multiple times? What is your average? Like, how does that go?
Yeah, I mean, typically I do get breakthroughs with people pretty quickly. Sometimes people will come to energy work skeptical, and it may take them a few more sessions. It may take them 2 or 3 sessions to feel comfortable with it. But once people start to open themselves up to allowing the work to be done, which is really just kind of a piece of them being ready, uh,
Mhm.
it does happen. It can happen very quickly.
Yeah, and so you're able to do Reiki on yourself as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So in
Yep.
order to do you feel like a lot of times the things that people need, it's like a releasing? Is it like helping them release traumas or what is it?
Yeah. I would say that primarily, at least initially, when someone is first doing energy work, a lot of what I see is sort of revelation. So, it's sort of this identifying of things that they didn't even know were there. And so it's like, oh my gosh, oh, I didn't even realize that that was a thing. But now that I'm seeing it, I can really see how that's been getting in my way or how that's blocking me, or whatever the case may be. And
Hmm.
it's just, I mean, it's an amazing thing that you can actually in that moment say, okay, well, then let's deal with this thing.
Do you guys talk during Reiki sessions? Or is it all like energy coming through?
Well, so I don't, I really don't do very many Reiki sessions without something else being combined with it. So the majority of my sessions are actually a combination of EFT and Reiki. So I'm typically doing Reiki on the person as we're doing the EFT. And so they're not necessarily aware that I'm doing the Reiki most of the time, but that's just the way that I work my sessions. And so, I can't really separate out, the
Yeah,
two.
that makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, but
Yeah, they work together. That makes total sense to me. And so
yeah.
in your bio, you had mentioned that you had worked with a lot of companies or different really cool people on stage with this too. Who are some of these people? I mean, can you think of anybody right off the top of your head?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I don't know that I would want to say clients' names
Oh, well, yeah. I
publicly
mean,
necessarily.
yeah, I don't
So
want you to do that. But I mean, you work with people on like different companies doing what you do. So it's like you do
yes.
marketing and consulting, but then in that same, like, do you still work with those people that you're doing marketing with and you do the EFT, Reiki
In
and all
some
that?
cases I do, not in all cases.
Yeah.
Every client's different.
Yeah.
So, some clients come to me and all they want is, business and marketing, and that's totally okay. And some people will come to me and say, I would love to know more about the energy piece of this and how this incorporates. And then in those cases, of course, I would do that.
Yeah, I think that's like you're like a one-stop shop. It's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I can market and I can consult and I can make you
Uh,
release all those blocks and we've got you covered." I mean, that is amazing. So I love it. I love it. Do you just have one child?
I do. I have one son,
Yeah.
and he's, yeah, amazing.
And so does he also know, I mean, Reiki and all of these things, like it's part of his life and he understands it and it's
Yeah,
healing.
it's been really fun because the last few years he has learned a lot, and he has incorporated some of these things. Absolutely, meditation became a big part of his own personal practice, and I think he's deeper than I am. He's a Scorpio anyway, so
Mhm.
yeah, the
Deep.
things that come
I
out of
love
his
zodiac signs. Yeah,
yeah,
Scorpios
yeah.
are definitely deep and mysterious for sure. But yeah, that's really cool. And that I'm assuming he's still like teenager or something like that. Is
Well,
he?
he's 22 now.
Oh goodness, you don't look 22 yourself. My
Oh,
gosh, the genes.
well, thank you, Debbie. But
Oh goodness. But it's a matter of, the meditation probably helped you a lot too through all of the things that you had to deal with in your, early adulthood. And so
well,
I love it.
interestingly, yeah, I didn't really come to most of this until late in my adulthood. Frankly, had I had a lot of this sooner, I would have avoided a great many traumas. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, it all happens for a reason. But
Right.
my 30s were just packed full of all kinds of things that taught me lots and lots of lessons about how to live life better. And it really wasn't until my late 30s and early 40s that I really came to an understanding of a lot of this.
Yeah, I love this. I love this, Pam, because it's so important for all of us, regardless if people believe in Reiki or not. There is a deep soul level that needs healing. All of us need to get in touch with that, deep breathe through it, do the meditation, all of these things that I also wish I would have known about and practiced as a young girl. And so I feel like us helping people get in touch with that as early on as possible is only going to help, and in a world where we
Absolutely.
have so much, I mean, comparison game with kids seeing people on social media and all the extra stresses that you and I didn't have. They
Right.
also have that in addition, and they see when they're not included in something because it's right there on their face on social media. And deep breathe through it, meditate, love yourself, all of these things. So
Right.
I've shared this stuff with my kids too,
Yeah.
about meditation and whatnot, since I've become aware of it.
Sure.
And I love that you do this. I really do. I have a lot more questions for you at some other point. We won't have to delve any more in here.
Well,
But
but to your point, I mean, I think, I mean, I can't speak for many people in, our age group or, people that were maybe are like 40 and over. But in our era, a lot of this was unheard of. And I have memories of very intuitive moments, but that wasn't something that I would have ever talked about or thought was, like of consequence, right? And so it wasn't until I really started to understand some of these other parts and pieces, and then I could pull in that intuitive piece of me that I really came to understand it. But these younger generations are different, and this is something that I think is very important for parents to understand, is that your kids will get this. They'll get it really, really quickly. And energy work is so much more powerful for them because they don't have all of the stuff in the way that we do. So when they start implementing these tools, it works so quickly for them. And it's so easy. It's so easy for them to do. And I don't know how many times I've heard parents say, "Oh my gosh, they've started doing it and now they tell me to do it." They remind me, "You should tap about that."
yeah, I love that you're bringing this up because, a lot of the shows that I have, last week was about mental health issues.
Yeah,
And right during his appearance here, he talked about being able to get into that zone of meditation and the
right.
spiritual realm work, and, the ability to, and, he didn't mention Reiki or anything like that, but he was definitely saying that his healing journey has included all of the things that you're mentioning. And that's what pulled him, helped. I mean, he had a behavioral therapist and all that too, but,
Sure.
it definitely took him to another place where he felt like he could handle his mental illness, and his life opened up in a whole
Yeah.
new way. And so, I love it. I love that. But,
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because everyone's a little bit different, right?
mm,
So everyone's going to require different things, maybe different modalities, maybe a combination of modalities, maybe a modality and therapy. And and for people that have been working with a therapist, I always say absolutely 100% do not stop going to your therapist, right? I mean, that's just such a valuable relationship. So you're absolutely right. I mean, all those parts and pieces are important.
so true. I didn't have any idea that your interview was going to go this way, but I think it really is needed and beneficial, the message that you're giving us today. I really appreciate you, getting into that. I'll probably make that into a clip and post it. So if no one, if they don't want to watch the whole thing, it's fine. But
Yeah.
that's a huge message right there.
Mm.
But, so, here we are talking about all of these things, and you've definitely found a lot in your life, including a lot of different careers. You are probably the most well-rounded, more career options of anyone I've met, and for sure that's been on the show. Like, you've done a little bit of everything:
Uh,
nursing, massage therapy, Reiki, marketing, sales. I know I'm forgetting some. So, I mean, like, there's a lot, and you're a writer, So, of all the things that you can, and what you just said was so powerful, but of all the things that you have found in your life, what is the most profound thing that you can share with us to inspire us to find it also?
mm. That is such a great question. And I think, that's that in some ways it's going to be different for everyone. But I also think at the heart, it is really about your connection with source or God, whatever word you use for that, and really coming to the point of seeing yourself from that perspective and knowing that, you were sent here, you were put here on this planet for a reason, and that there is a purpose that only you can fulfill while you're here. And to really get to the heart of that for yourself, because I think, in this world that we live in now more than ever, maybe it's so easy to get caught up in just what has to be done and the day to day, and we sort of lose contact with our souls along the way. And
Mm.
yet our souls are the whole reason that we're here to begin with. And so to really go on that journey to finding out who you really are
Oh,
at the deepest levels, and then walking that journey out with yourself, go on that adventure and just let that unfold.
wow. I love that. Man, I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Finding yourself and finding your soul that we've kind of left behind and running the rat race of life,
Right.
find it. I love that so much. Well, I want to know, is there anything else you'd love to share with us? I do, Lynn, I have one of her websites. Now, everything is in the post on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if anyone wants to look at any of her websites or contact her for to work in any certain kind of way, she can do it all. You can contact her. So it's all in there, but I did do a ticker on the banner, I believe, Lynn. If you want to scroll that through real fast, one of her ways you can contact her. But is there anything else that we didn't cover that you really just want to put out there and say and share with us tonight?
Mm. I think if anything, I feel like there's been so much struggle over the last few years. People, we've just been through a lot. We've been through a lot, and I just want people to know, there is light and there is joy
Mm.
and there is something better. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Keep looking. If you need to reach out to someone to get some help with that, then 100% reach out and get that help so that you can start to see, what? Yes, there is something more. There, and I want that something more, for others as much as I want that for me. And so that's really, I think, primarily the message that I keep trying to share out
Mm.
is just whatever it takes
Yeah.
to get to that better place, give yourself the opportunity to get there. Put the people around you that you need to. For me personally, finding a great support group was a big piece of my journey. It was a really big piece of my journey. And there were so many wonderful things that came from that. And I found that support group for free through a church. And it wasn't like a religious thing. It was just, here's
Mhm.
a support group, come get help. And, those resources are out there. You can call churches, you can call community centers. I mean, there's so many different ways to get help. And so if you're just feeling stuck, even,
Mhm.
reach out, find someone, or, connect with a coach, connect with a mentor, connect with a pastor.
Mhm.
If you go to a church or a synagogue or what have you, just, put people around you that can help you on your journey, because it doesn't have to be that hard.
Right. And that I love that message, Pam, because I think people lose hope and they think that there's no one else that they can connect with that feel the same way they do. And even if they don't feel the same way you do, they have a likeness of the same journey where you guys can support one another. And
Yeah.
that is a great message. And so find it there too. Find your support group. It is so important to not feel alone. And one of the things that I've taught my kids too is once you really learn how to love who you are and you be your best friend too and know that
Mhm.
you're never alone.
Yeah.
And you know, go out there and find someone that you can talk to or a group that you can talk to. There are people who would be willing and ready to do that for sure.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I appreciate you bringing that up. So with that, I've loved this. We've jam-packed 30, 40 minutes into, you know, a lot of stuff into 40
Yes.
minutes. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think our audience has too. And so thank you so much, Pam. Stick around
Thank
in the
you.
green room with Mints and Tramps. And I'll see you in a minute. And until then, let's play the outro. See y'all.